Welcome, everybody.
Welcome, everybody.
Welcome, Node.
Welcome, Manak. Welcome, Forrest, our weighted stuffed animal friend who will be joining us today.
I realize I'm almost the same color as Forrest.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
guys are like twins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited about today's topic, which is context.
Context. Yeah.
Context. And I would like to get right into it.
Okay.
What do you mean by context in a relational setting?
Yeah. What do I mean by context in a relational setting? The first thing that comes up to me is the context of even that question of we're going to make a choice to talk about something very esoteric that not the general public is not even going to kind of know where to latch on to. And so the first thing that arises for me is somewhat of an explanation. It's like, oh, this is really specific to embodied relational practices, right? Authentic relating, circling, instances of relating with another or others that is intentionally aware of the relational field, kind of how we enter into that field and how do we enter into that field.
So I'm a bit confused.
Yeah.
Is the context already there, or
Mm.
do I bring the context with me?
Yeah. So both. So context is kind of every choice that we make that creates our the texture of our relating is context. So there's a lot of unspoken context, right? For instance, we've both context that clothing is going to be a part of this interaction, right? Um, and potentially the viewer, I have a story here that you have context listening to people two people discuss something very ambiguous as okay. And so there's a context right now of it's okay to explore something without defining it.
Hmm. So what I hear is that it's a choice that everyone is making.
Yeah, it's like the context is only like the context only arises through participation.
Okay.
Yeah, and awareness can both bring choice into things like, okay, I'm going to make a conscious choice to be a part of this context. But it can also help us modify or recontext. For instance, we were talking a little bit about the context of like this back and forth communication. Well, what if we made an agreement that every time we were really feeling lost in the conversation, or we were kind of checking out or dissociating or having an emotional response or impact, that we could interrupt, and that was championed
Mhm.
as part of the context of our conversation. How would that change how we're relating to each other?
how would it change if it was agreed upon that it was okay to interrupt, or
Yeah.
okay to voice the fact that you're not, one of us is not following?
Yeah.
I feel like it would strengthen the connection and strengthen the moment.
Yeah. With two people, it's a little bit difficult to conceptualize how something like that would change. But I was just at an immersion, a circling immersion in LA for 3 days, where the context of interrupting, of having side conversations, of really honoring the self, and seemingly breaking certain socially normative kind of conversation rules did lead to a strengthening of the container in a lot of ways.
That's very interesting, and it brings up a question, and maybe this will take us a step back.
I love it.
So two people enter a room,
Mm-hmm.
and the context is something that is agreed upon and something that both people are choosing to participate in. However, what if?
So I'm
What?
going to interrupt you right there.
Yeah,
Right? What's that like?
that feels good.
Does it? Okay.
Yeah.
So so already, and this is kind of like I'm going to recontext us. Okay. Already there's this structure that, I mean, we're human, that we want to build around context. Like, what is it? How do we define it? Like, we agree upon it. And my sense is it's a lot more fluid than that. It's like everything is context. And the question is, how much of it are we aware of? How much of it are we conscious that we're actually making a choice here?
I see. I think I'm understanding it better now. So the context is there as soon as two people are having some kind of a shared experience, and there could be a difference in degree on how much I'm aware of it.
Yeah.
So there are pieces of the context that I'm not aware of. That is possible
And even likely.
and even likely.
Yeah. So let like let's recontext here. And what are you noticing in your body right now?
I'm noticing a tension, and the tension is because I'm trying to make sense of this.
Okay.
That's what the tension is.
Okay. But what does it feel like? I'm curious. Like that, when you say that, I kind of have this idea, and I could be wrong, that the tension is in your head.
Mm. The tension is in my chest,
Mm.
and it's the worry or anxiety
Mm-hmm.
of making sure that I follow what you're saying.
Oh, yeah. And what if you don't?
If I don't, I'm worried that we won't get to the point.
Okay. So when I hear you say, like, get to the point, the way that I orient to that is that the context is not a point. It's like a net, or it's a field, or it's a blanket, but it's something that is containing us. And so a point, inherently, we are existing outside of that point. We can't cram ourselves into a point.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of is the point of the context, is that it inherently is going to be more ambiguous than we want it to be.
Okay.
And I'm I'm curious, because this came up for me when you were talking. If you were kind of going to paint or like put your finger on the context and how the context shifted when I asked you the question? What would be some elements of context that got kind of recontext or added?
The part of the context that I felt got added was that I suddenly felt you cared about my experience
Oh,
of this conversation.
okay. Yeah.
Maybe that was already there, but I became aware of it
Oh,
at the
yeah.
very least.
Yeah. So you just added context to this. Okay.
Explain that.
So you just added your participation in building context by bringing both of our awareness to the relational field between you and I right now,
Okay.
right? There there are maybe infinite number of different things that you could have put your finger on, right? An example, you could have said, well, I noticed that we brought the body into it. Like all of a sudden there was a context of the body and physical sensations.
Okay.
Okay. You could have said, oh, uh, all of a sudden there was a context of discomfort, right? Of tension.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so discomfort is allowed in our conversation now. So that can be a context.
Am I bringing in context, or am I just becoming aware of the context that's already there?
Yeah. Yes and yes. And by naming it, it becomes an agreed upon context.
Okay.
Because when you name it, then we're relating to it.
I feel like this is so hard to grasp. Like it's
So
just
hard to
like it's
grasp.
like I try to like hold on to it, and it's like, oh, it's not what I thought it
Like
was.
grasping smoke.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I'm going to pause you, and I'm glad that you're bringing this up because me too. That's why I wanted to have this conversation, is because this is not a topic that just gets downloaded into your brain. It's really a living exploration of relating, of relationship. And I have very little experience with this, though I'm beginning to understand just how pregnant it is, how important it is to bring awareness to these context and these contextual agreements that we enter into.
What is the importance of bringing awareness to these contextual agreements?
The ability to actually have choice and to acknowledge what preferences I have, what needs I have, what desires I have, and where I'm running up against something like friction, where I'm running up against potentially an obstacle that I have, an aversion to a certain context, right? And we could like push the envelope in this and make this really obvious by just saying like we're I have a story that we would both be averse to the context of taking all of our clothes off and proceeding to do the podcast naked.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Like it's so outside of the realm of possibilities that even saying that I don't really even get anxiety about it because I know it's not going to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
As you were describing elements of the context, the word that kept coming up for me was the relational field.
Yeah.
Are these synonymous?
I don't think so.
Okay.
What's your sense?
My sense was that they were.
Okay.
I couldn't tell the difference between the two.
Okay. I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe. I think it's one of those things where if we said that they're synonymous, I know I have a story that other people might say, well, maybe not. Maybe there are certain energetic or subtle or causal components to the relational field that are not encapsulated by context,
Okay.
right?
Do you mind if I try to poke at this context thing a bit more?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. What if I don't agree to something?
Mm.
So let's say you want to talk about something, and I just don't agree. I just don't want to talk about that. It, what is the context there? Is there a context there? Is agreement a critical part of it being context? Yeah. So how would you?
Yeah. So what comes up for me is that conflict is part of the context. And in this moment, what what kind of so that came up for me, like disagreement is now part of the context, or can be. But what simultaneously are kind of this voice in my head kind of brought my attention to there's an underlying agreement in participating in an embodied relational practice. That is, we're going to be committed to connection. And so the question then is, well, what is the context of this relationship when disagreement is allowed?
Okay. The example that I had in mind
Yeah.
was more of a regular conversation rather than an embodied relational conversation.
Yeah.
In a regular conversation, let's
Mhm.
say we're heading towards a conflict,
Yeah.
and one person does not like conflict. They're completely avoidant of conflict, but they can
Yeah.
see this is going there.
Yeah.
Um, but they're still having that conversation. They haven't left the room,
Mm.
right? Is that them agreeing to it?
That's interesting. So what comes up for me is let's pause and remember that we're talking about a meta structure of conversation here, right? Those three levels of conversation. We're talking about that deepest level of conversation, which is the context. So in just a normal conversation, most of the content or like what is being talked about is a is more superficial in that context. Okay? So the context is still happening, but it's not seen. There's a little awareness to it. Okay? I
I follow
Do you
that.
follow
I
that?
follow
Okay.
that. Yeah.
That's important when we kind of are switching from talking about embodied relational practices like AR and circling and relatefulness, and now we're talking about the context of kind of a normal conversation, right? So to me, what comes up is the context of that scenario, and correct me if I'm wrong, we're talking about getting into a conflict, and I don't want to be in the conflict, but I'm going to stay because maybe I don't know how to get out of the conflict.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Am I
Yeah.
tracking
Yeah.
that?
That's
Okay.
good.
So in that situation, one of the contexts that I see would be self abandonment is okay,
Mm.
right? So I'm going to abandon myself and my needs to stay in this conflict, to stay in this conversation. Now, it doesn't sound like that's probably in the awareness of that person,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's more like these meanings of like why I have to stay there in the conflict are there.
Mm-hmm.
But the context would be I don't want to be in this, right? that maybe there's a context of I have to stay here in order to be loved, be accepted, be secure, be stable.
Gotcha.
Right? So those agreements.
Okay.
Right?
So the question of what is happening relationally right now
Yeah.
is the same question as what is the context.
The context, yeah.
Right now.
Yeah, what's happening relationally? That's great. That's great.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I think I'm beginning to understand now.
Yeah, like how am I entering into a relationship with you in this moment?
Right. Or how am I orienting to what is happening in this moment between us?
Yeah,
That would also be context.
100%.
All right.
Yeah.
So it is that third layer of conversation.
I think so.
That's where the context is coming up.
I think so. And there's probably a lot of other nuance that we're not hitting on. Right? And I think that, like, for me, the context, like if I recontext this conversation in that direction, it's how do I welcome and love elements of conversation, elements of relating to you that I don't see yet?
Okay, I'm gonna stop you right there. Wait, where did love come into this? Would you just take a step back?
Yeah. So at this immersion that I was at, love is the relatefulness. The relatefulness model of circling is like really champions love and truth, love and honesty. And so a lot of the language that was being used was love language. And it's my understanding in circling is the way that is used is kind of as a synonym for connection.
Okay.
Which I like. You know, if you know, I know that you travel in like spiritual circles.
Right.
And so love is that ultimate power, creativity, and life, and you know, power in the universe. And so it's really like asking, how can I channel that power, right? That comes from my true self, and find it in relationship.
Okay. And what does it have to do with context? What's the relation between these two?
I don't think that there may not be an inherent relationship outside of kind of a non-dual perspective of awareness being the love that kind of allows the context to occur.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
That might be really esoteric. Like really out there.
Right. I felt that though you were making a you were trying to you were seeing a connection between those two things in the dualistic sense. And I'm going to check that with you. It felt like you were saying that once you become aware of the context, that is the place where love can effectively enter, or like does that track, or I don't know.
That feels good to me.
Okay.
Yeah, it feels good. Like if I can name the context, then I can observe the context, and at the same time as I'm acknowledging I'm a part of that context. And that the reason that I want to observe this and be aware of this context is because I care. I want to be in connection with other people.
Right.
And that's love. Right. I want love to exist between us. And so I want to see how that's happening,
Right.
right? And the how that's happening is like multi multi well, it's varied,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's a lot of hows in that. It's not just one way.
Yeah. What's also coming up for me is if I'm aware of the context between whoever I find myself with, being aware of that, I feel that I can infuse it with love in the best way possible for the both of us, instead of trying to infuse it at a story level or a content level where I feel I'll miss the mark. That's what's coming up for me.
So what's coming up for me when you say that is I get like really giddy and I want to push against that in not because I disagree, but because I want to like push us both like farther into the pot. Because what happens when I disagree? Like I see the context or there's conflict. I see the context and I want to bring my disagreement into the context.
What comes up for me when you say you want to disagree
Yeah.
is, oh, good, we're gonna get right into it. Like
Yeah.
we're gonna get right to the crux of it instead of just talking about two different things, or one person's just somewhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is it's exciting for me. It's like, oh, we're in this together.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it feels like.
Yeah. So it's like, so the context can include disagreement and include conflict. Right. And so then the question is, how can, like, what happens when I enter into conflict with a genuine love and desire to stay connected? Like, I want to include conflict, include disagreement, and I don't want to lose connection with you.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, this is taking me to. This is wanting me to bring another word into this discussion, which is intention. So
Mm,
if two people are having a conflict and they've agreed to have that conflict, one person's intention might be, I want this conflict to deepen our relationship. Another person's intention might be, I'm going to prove this person wrong.
mm.
And I'm wondering if that intention, does that, is that also part of the context, or yeah, or is it
So,
outside the context?
so again, I want to bring this back and clarify. Are we talking about a normal conversation that I might have with just somebody, or you might just have with somebody? Or are we talking about this in terms of what happens within an embodied relational container where we've agreed that we're going to stay in connection for a certain amount of time?
Good question. The example that I had in mind was outside of an
With
embodied connection.
outside of an embodied, yeah. So let's answer this and explore this within an embodied container first, because I think it's most relevant. It's also, I think it's most relevant. I think it's the most helpful to understanding the context.
I agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how does that change your willingness? If you know that I'm committed to connection, that I'm not going to go anywhere, and that this is part of the practice that we're participating in, what happens to your willingness to be in conflict with me?
I am 100% willing.
Yeah.
There's not a bone in my body that wants to back off or change anything about that.
Yeah. And what happens if it's allowed that you want to change my mind?
Ooh.
How does that change the context?
What happens if it's allowed for me to change your mind?
No, no, no. What if it's allowed for you to want to change my mind?
To be honest, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just blanking out at that.
What
It feels like it's such a foreign situation that I don't even know
Mm.
how to orient to that.
Do we want to like come up with a topic that we might disagree on? It might be a little difficult because I have a sense that we probably are lockstep on
Yeah,
most
I
things.
actually don't have any example where we might disagree on.
Um, okay. What about like health and diet and like yeah, health and diet and exercise and lifestyle things.
Yeah,
When you see somebody who like doesn't ascribe to like, doesn't eat a healthy diet, doesn't work out, regularly, what do you think about them?
fuck. I am judgmental
Yeah.
of them. I feel like I think my immediate reaction is they don't take health seriously, so they don't take life seriously.
Mm,
They're busy distracting themselves or satiating themselves with pleasure. I
mm,
guess that's what comes up.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a very judgmental, rejecting energy
Yeah.
that goes through me.
Yeah. I feel you in that. There's a part of me that wants to just agree with you and like jump on that bandwagon and be like, yeah, fuck that person. Like they don't get it, right? Like,
Yeah.
and be in judgment mode. And I know that part like very well from childhood and growing up in kind of a judgmental family system and whatnot. And then there's another part of me that has been a holistic naturopathic doctor for almost 10 years now and has worked with enough people who are genuinely trying to make healthy changes in their life and can't. That there's a tenderness and a compassion and an appreciation for a whole nother way of orienting to that. And that part of me wants to change your mind.
Right.
Right? It wants to, and it wants to disagree with you and kind of like therapize you, like be a therapist here, kind of show you the air in your way.
My immediate reaction to hearing that is I want you to change my mind on that, but I don't know how I feel about the word therapize.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that was a context. Okay?
Okay.
Right? If I would have just jumped in and said, "Oh, well, you have to, look at it from their perspective and there's, they're trying too and you can't just judge them." That's not context. That's information,
Right.
right? That's story.
Right.
Yeah.
I felt I felt that, but I didn't think that.
Yeah.
So let me let me try to grasp it uh, with my mind just for a little bit. The context there was how you are orienting to what I said
Yeah.
instead of you getting into why I should be more compassionate
Yeah.
or the things that I'm not seeing about these people.
Yeah. And so I name that I do have an agenda. That there's an agenda there. That doesn't mean that you have to accept that agenda, but it's now an agenda that is on the table.
Right.
Right? Another way of doing that is asking you if I can offer a reframe, right? Or asking you if you would consent for me to kind of push against that
Right.
that projection,
Right.
right? So all of those are slightly different, but they're kind of in that same vein that we were kind of asking about in terms of disagreeing, right? And kind of wanting to change somebody's mind.
Right.
Yeah.
It feels very gentle, this way of relating.
Yeah.
I If you had actually gone moved up a level to the story level
Mm-hmm.
and went into an explanation, that would have not felt good at all.
Yeah.
That would have felt um, full of friction.
Yeah.
And also, I would have felt maybe not understood.
Mm.
So the fact that you revealed how you oriented to what I said, it just relaxed me completely.
Yeah. It's curious, hey?
Yeah.
Because my experience of some of these like projections and agendas that I have, and especially when it comes to like wanting to change people's minds, is really intense in me. And there's something about being given permission to voice that they're there and have that just exist that really relaxes me into it. Like, oh, okay, I don't have to justify it. It's there. And then when I name it, there's often the opportunity to explore and just be open and curious about it.
In that one example, what I felt was when you shared how you oriented to my judgment, what I felt like doing was to actually invite you in to change my mind.
Mm, interesting.
You didn't even have to ask the question. You didn't have to ask, hey, can I offer you a perspective?
Mm,
Like I would have, if that conversation just continued, I would have called you to do that.
yeah, I love it.
Yeah. Which you could have said no to and redefined the context.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I just
right.
love that space that we were in.
Yeah, and redefining the context. I mean, could have looked a million different ways, right? Could have been kind of a co exploration of the different way of looking at it, or kind of flipping the projection back, or like there's all kinds of different moves that we have when we're in a container that allows for essentially everything to exist, right? It really brings our conscious awareness into that context rather than being limited by our story and information that we have.
I feel this topic is so fascinating, and it feels like I understand it one moment and the next moment I don't understand it. That's how it feels like.
100%. Me too. Yeah. I have this kind of arising, I don't know, sensation, but kind of thought bubble of it might sound, or this projection, this story, that it might sound like I know what I'm talking about. And that is kind of hilarious to me right now. Like, I think I understand it well enough to start kind of exploring and playing around with it, and having the conversation to like help with that understanding. Um, and I have a strong sense that there are a lot of components to this that I'm missing.
Mhm. So this context piece, I feel like you've just started talking about this after the immersion,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
How do you feel about stumbling on this and knowing a little bit but still feeling like you don't know a lot of it?
Yeah. Well, so I circle with another couple people like in my life. Like we circle individually, and then I circle with my colleague Brian, who hopefully you will all meet soon. And I was down in this immersion with him, And Brian and I talk about this idea of context and contexting and recontexting. We've been talking about it for a little while because he's going through the circling facilitator training, the relatefulness facilitator training right now. And it's a big part of what he's learning. And so, I kind of have been learning about it through him. And so I've been it's very meta. And so I love it. It's like totally my jam. So I've been trying to really wrap my brain around it and relate to it and orient to it in different ways. And yeah, being at the immersion was like these aha like light bulbs were going off throughout the entire weekend where it's like, oh, okay, got it. Oh, okay, got it. Yeah, this makes a lot of sense. And so I was kind of chomping at the bit to like dive in and have a conversation about it.
It feels like it gets to the heart of these practices.
I think so. Yeah.
It's like it feels like it's pointing towards something juicy.
Yeah.
In the context of these practices.
Yeah, the facilitator of the immersion, Michael Bloss, is someone who within the community is regarded as kind of somewhat of a master of setting context. And so it was, and I can see why now after being in the immersion. And yeah, it was really wild. I don't think I could do any of his like adages, like his little quotes, like the justice that they deserve, because they, yeah. So I won't say any more on that, but it was like really amazing.
I am so jealous, and one day I hope to go to these immersions and find out for myself
Oh yeah,
how good they are.
I mean maybe we'll have an immersion here in Regina.
Ooh,
I mean that's what the podcast is all about is helping people understand this a little bit more, helping our community grow in understanding. And I would think that having an immersion here would totally be realistic.
oh, that's so exciting.
Yeah.
That's so exciting.
Yeah, for sure. The Heart Center would be perfect for it.
I'm stoked for that. Well,
Cool.
we can wrap it up here because
Wrap it up here.
time's
All right.
almost up.
For all of you who are still watching this, please follow, subscribe. It does help our channel in terms of the algorithms and whatnot. And if you know anyone who you think would relate to this content, relate to these conversations, please pass it on and let us know in the comments or send us an email if you have any ideas or themes or comments or criticisms that you want to bring to our attention, because we want to interact with those. And as we keep doing this, kind of the method that we're using, I think, will evolve, and hopefully it'll evolve into something that is, as participatory, as inclusive of the audience as possible. So please participate with us.
Thank you so much.